ISIS,
this morning.
Islamic State,
ISIS control.
ISIS tonight.
ISIS attack.
ISIS.
The Islamic State.
ISIS attack.
ISIS, also known as ISIL, Daesh, and now simply just the Islamic State. Now, without a doubt, you have heard about these guys on the news for the last decade and a half, as the Islamic State has been the undisputed global villain of the 21st century. Like at the height of their power in the mid-2010s, they were not just a militant organization, but a caliphate, with a military able to challenge the respective governments of Iraq and Syria. Now, their reach was not contained to the Middle East. This was a global caliphate, where they were able to spread influence globally, particularly into West Africa, where they captured land in northern Nigeria and the Sahel region of Africa, particularly in southern Mali, where they still control land here to this day. Now, they didn't stop there. They were also in the Far East, in the Philippines, for when in 2017, 1,000 ISIS militants took over parts of the city of Marari for a 5-month brutal siege. Now, ISIS is a very interesting case when it comes to looking at terror groups, as they are one of the few organizations to transition from a militant group to a de facto governing state, aka a proto-state. For those who do not know what a proto-state is, it's a semi-functioning self-declared government, basically recognized by nobody. This gave them military capabilities never seen by a terror organization before. They captured and fielded tanks, utilized sophisticated artillery and rockets to launch a large-scale offensive into Iraq and Syria. But none of this could have happened without the backbone of any modern military, being small arms. For those who do not know what small arms are, these are handheld weapons, and then modern sense firearms. In this video, we will be talking about the ubiquitous arsenal of the Islamic State, whether it was the right arm in the free world, the FNFL, or the workhorse of the caliphate, ubiquitous to other insurgencies, being the From the streets of Mosul to the rubble of Raqqa, you without a doubt see the AK-47 in the hands of ISIS fighters. It was basically the equivalent for a standard issue rifle for the Islamic State. But you might ask the question, why does the AK-47 dominate not just ISIS's arsenal, but also every major militant/terror organization in the world? To answer that question, we need to look back to the Cold War, when the USA and USSR were fighting for global dominance. Ways these two superpowers would gain influence in the world was by sending millions of weapons to foreign nations. Those nations then receiving the aid had to rely on the two superpowers for defense. Now, Syria and Iraq were no different to this. They were some of the biggest receivers of Soviet aid, especially Saddam Hussein's Ba'athist Iraq. The Ba'athist Iraqi regime stockpiled Soviet arms for decades, but then following the US invasion in 2003, the Iraqi government collapsed. With that, a major power vacuum erupted within the nation. Groups like ISI, which translates to the Islamic State in Iraq, which then transformed to what we now know as ISIS, began to fill this void. Initially, they acquired arms through the lucrative black market trade in the Middle East. But when ISIS started to capture territory in Iraq and Syria, they also captured government stockpiles of Soviet weapons, built up for decades. But with that, the AK platform is just known for its simplicity, reliability, and ruggedness. The famous quote goes, "The AK is so simple a child could use it." And ISIS took this a little too seriously, as they armed thousands of children with AKs to fight for the caliphate. Crucially, this rifle's dominance is because 7.62x39 is stockpiled everywhere in the Middle East. Basically, you can go to any town in the Middle East to this day, and you will probably find 7.62x39 in that village. So when ISIS took over these villages in Iraq and Syria, they were able to resupply themselves and continue their offensives. So wherever ISIS operated, the AK was there. Its ruggedness, reliability, simplicity made it common sense to basically arm almost every man in the caliphate with it. With its record of stocking power and its ability to withstand the hell of urban warfare, it was incredibly ideal for fighters. But this came at the cost of accuracy. The AK was essentially the backbone of the caliphate. In the streets of Marari, it was outshined by another rifle, a rifle that could fix the problems of the AK's accuracy. That rifle being the When ISIS captured large government strongholds like Mosul and Ramadi, their armies contained an entirely different kind of rifle, this rifle being the American M16. The massive influx of Western weapons meant to rebuild post-Saddam Iraq quickly fell into the hands of ISIS, allowing them to field the AR platform as widely as the AK. The AR platform, particularly the M16 and M4 variants, offered a high degree of accuracy compared to the standard AK. The lighter 5.56mm round also meant fighters could carry more ammunition into a battle, as it was lighter than the standard AK ammunition 7.62x39, which was substantially heavier. Most importantly, these modern Western rifles gave ISIS fighters something the standard AK lacked: modularity. The AR platform allowed for easy integration of optics, grips, lasers, and other accessories, customizations you could rarely see on an AK. ISIS immediately prioritized the M4 and M16 for their elite forces. This Western equipment, combined with captured uniforms and body armor, allowed them to have a uniformed army, which has never been seen by a terror group until this point. For a time, their standard army was on par with both the forces of Iraq and Syria. The only time the AR truly overcame the AK in dominance was in the 2017 siege of Marari in the southern Philippines. This is purely due to a local phenomenon driven by the popularity of the AR and the lucrative black market trade in Southeast Asia. Also, many of the militants' arms were stolen directly from local police and military forces, which primarily used the AR platform. The AK and AR, for once united under a banner, albeit this was a banner of terror, were the standard issues rifles of the Islamic State, for their sheer quality, ease of use, and ruggedness. But a rifle can only take an army so far. To actually hold territory, to defend a checkpoint, or to launch a devastating offensive, you are going to need the ability to spit out massive volumes of fire. To do that, you're going to need ISIS utilized machine guns once again primarily from vast captured Soviet stockpiles. This gave the Caliphate access to weapons like the RPD, RPK for lighter squad support, and the more critical PKM. The PKM became the backbone of their defensive lines, firing the powerful 7.62x54R round, the same as the Dragunov sniper rifle. The PKM is an exponentially reliable, durable, rugged machine gun that can provide sustained, long-range fire suppression, allowing their rifleman to advance undercover. Within that, this machine gun has shown its longevity, as it's still used by both the Russian forces and Ukrainian forces in the modern Ukraine war. When ISIS truly needed anti-material firepower, they turned to the Dishka. The Dishka, a heavy Soviet machine gun firing the massive 12.7 round, the Soviets' answer to the American 50 cal, is where the Caliphate's tactical ingenuity really came into play. The Dishka was rarely used how it was intended, being mounted onto a heavy tripod as an anti-aircraft gun. Instead, it was usually mounted to civilian pickup trucks, creating the iconic fast-moving technical makeshift armored vehicle. This simple modification turned a Toyota Helix into a mobile artillery piece, giving ISIS the ability to create a fast-moving, makeshift armored vehicle and mobile fire support platform that could simply overpower an enemy with sheer firepower, as they were literally using an anti-aircraft gun to take on infantry. But the sheer destructive force of the Islamic State once again was not purely Soviet. From the spoils of war from Mosul, they were able to capture another machine gun, a Western machine gun, the M249. The M249, firing the powerful 5.56x45 round, became the definitive squad support gun for the Islamic State. Wherever ISIS was, once again, they probably were using it, mounted onto trucks alongside the Soviet Dishka, giving the men on the ground to provide overwhelming fire suppression, or mounted in a fixed position like a machine gun nest to defend key positions. But when the battlefield turned offensive for the Islamic State, when every inch gained by the enemy must be paid for, and the enemy has nowhere but to move towards you, you must make them pay. For that specific deadly task, you're gonna need As ISIS went into decline and moved away from large-scale offensives to consolidating what was left of their crumbling caliphate, they primarily became a defensive force. During the liberation of Iraq and Syria, coalition and allied forces would inevitably face an ISIS sniper, likely armed with an SVD, also known as the Dragunov sniper rifle. With its record of reliability, ease of use, and accuracy, it gave the rifle the nickname the AK of the sniper world, giving it weight to truly how reliable this rifle was. Its logistical appeal though is what made it a no-brainer for the Islamic State to adopt the rifle. It used the same ammunition stockpiled by the regimes of the past, and its robust design meant ISIS could easily maintain already existing rifles and the necessary optics for long-range engagements. Also, there was hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of these rifles in stockpiles, so there was just so many it made sense to use it. Beyond the massive quantity that was captured from the Soviet stockpiles, the SVD's platform dominance was further cemented by Iraq's domestic production of the rifle. Prior to 2003, Iraq produced a version of the SVD known as the Al-Qadish and a 7.60x39 variant, the Tabuk rifle, which, while often lower quality than the original Russian and Chinese models, it utilized the same common 7.60x54R round and 7.60x39 round, making the rifle quite versatile. When ISIS captured military facilities, particularly in Mosul, they not only seized existing Tabuk and Al-Qadish rifle stockpiles, but also gained access to parts, tools, and even the machinery to produce crude, localized versions of the Al-Qadish and its existing components. This native production capability, combined with the vast pre-existing ammunition supply, meant that even as foreign-made SVDs were destroyed or consumed in combat, the Caliphate could easily continue to field a readily available, if less refined, semi-automatic sniper rifle. But when ISIS fighters didn't have access to an SVD or an AK, they looked to another rifle that, if modified in a crude way, could fill the role of both. This rifle being the SKS. While not a sniper rifle, but more accurately a semi-automatic battle carbine, the SKS was the weapon of choice for versatile fighters. The first and more common modification was a crude and unreliable conversion to full auto, making the rifle more prone to double feeding and jamming. Alongside this, a crude optic mount for red dot sights and scopes. Also, even more importantly and more impactful, the conversion to take AK magazines. This essentially created a slightly more accurate but often less reliable AK-47 equivalent. The second option was leveraging its inherent design as a marksman rifle. With its longer barrel and superior sight rays compared to the AK, the SKS offered a bridge between the AK and SVDs for fighters who leaned towards the AK with its superior close-quarter combat capabilities. Also, for fighters who lacked access to a precision rifle and wanted a rifle that could do just as good a job, you could simply slap on a PU scope and optic also compatible with the Mosin Nagant, another somewhat common rifle in the region, making the SKS a good secondary option for long-range engagements. Its ability to quickly reload using stripper clips or when converted to accept AK magazines gave it versatility superior to the SVD in a way, included with its superior effectiveness in close-quarter combat gave it so another reason to be superior than the SVD. The SKS became a weapon of immense versatility, capable of being right on the front line or right behind cover to take on the enemy from afar. But now we covered the main small arms of the Caliphate. Bullets, however, can only take an army so far. When you really need to disable an enemy armored vehicle, whether it's an APC or a main battle tank, you are going to need The Islamic State was no stranger to explosives. If anything, it was their mastercraft. With their capacity for at-home production, it was the pinnacle of the Caliphate's war effort. This included the mass production of improvised explosive devices, known as IEDs, some of these being improvised rockets, countless makeshift hand grenades, and timed explosives. One of ISIS's most insidious tactics was booby-trapping entire neighborhoods, ensuring when positions were lost, the enemy taking up those recently lost positions would be decimated. With this came the impact of hurting thousands to hundreds of thousands of civilians, whether it be deaths or being severely injured, showing how big of scum these people really were. But for a frontline fighter, the RPG-7 was the ultimate anti-everything weapon. For the Islamic State, the RPG-7's strength lay true in its ubiquity and devastating versatility. Not only was it able to fight off heavy armor, but its rockets and launcher were available in massive stockpiles. Alongside this, its ability to smash through urban walls, providing immediate heavy fire support, it was a rugged shoulder-fired artillery piece that was always available to the lowest ranking of fighter. The RPG-7's cheap and simple design also meant the Islamic State had the capability to manufacture its own rockets domestically, a critical success to their war effort, and one of the few pieces of complex ordnance that the Caliphate could truly produce in-house. These, however, were not the exclusive arms of the Islamic State. To truly understand their opportunistic arsenal, we need to take a blast to the past straight back to World War II and look at the STG-44, the very first assault rifle ever made. a weapon created by the Third Reich that revolutionized the future of small arm technology, with the idea of a bridge between the submachine gun and a full-power rifle, thus the assault rifle. Now you may ask, how the hell did 5,000 STG-44s get to Syria? Well, the theory holds that these were an early aid package from the USSR to quickly arm the newly independent Syrian state. They were given a vast stockpiles of these German rifles from the spoils of World War II, just as the AK was becoming widespread within the Eastern Bloc and other Soviet allies, meaning these 70-year-old weapons were rarely touched, as the minute they got them, they also got AKs. So then they were thrown into storage, where they remained for another 70 years until ISIS got their hands on them, who used them opportunistically, mainly during the intense fighting for Raqqa. However, the 7.92 Kurds ammunition supply quickly dried up, since very few places still produced the ammo or spare parts for the STG-44, and once the ammunition ran out or a rifle broke, they were thrown into storage to never be seen on the battlefield again. But the arsenal of World War II relics for ISIS was not just Axis, it also included the Allies. For that, we need to look at another relic abused by ISIS, being the Lee-Enfield rifle. As Iraq was a former colony of the British Empire, thousands of these bolt-action rifles were shipped to the region for local armies and militias. But when the British left, the rifle stayed, often thrown into storage to be soon replaced by the AK-47. But the Lee-Enfield never truly died in the Middle East. Many nations modernized the rifle or just simply kept it, as it was still a good marksman rifle. But after the SVD revolutionized the sniper warfare scene, these rifles were once again retired, only for ISIS to capture their old stockpiles and then immediately throw them back into service, as ISIS is known that they will use any gun that shoots. For a surprising high number of militants, the Lee-Enfield was actually the preferred sniper rifle over the SKS or the SVD. Its old school construction made it incredibly durable and highly accurate over long ranges. Crucially, its 10-round detachable magazine gave the user the ability to have fast reloads to be on par with the SVD. Also, the Lee-Enfield rifle is just superior to the other options in the region, being the Mosin Nagant and Moss 36, as it was superior with accuracy, speed, and most importantly, ammo capacity. Therefore, if you were pinned down by an ISIS sniper, there was a real chance he was using a 120-year-old British veteran. ISIS, one of the most unique polities to come out of the modern warfare scene since the dawn of the 21st century. ISIS was a true unicorn army, uniting weapons usually pointed against each other, united under one army. You saw this most with the AK and the AR, weapons usually pointed at each other, for once united as the standard issue rifles of an army. Now, even crazier, you saw weapons from the 1940s like the STG-44 and the Lee-Enfield fighting alongside the pinnacle of modern warfare squad support, the M249. Even crazier, ISIS had a war effort, creating IEDs, ammunition, and explosives for either a launcher or for a trap. Now, I hope you guys enjoyed this video as much as I did making it. This was a true passion project coming straight from the heart. I poured tons of work into this, tons of hours of editing, researching, so it would mean a lot to me if you guys dropped a like. Comments would even be better over a like, and subscribed. Because I think I'm going to keep doing this transition away from doing like in-game reload animations in real life and making cardboard guns to making like history videos on guns. If you guys like that, I don't know, leave a comment. Hopefully this video blows up. That'd be really cool. Anyways, thank you so much for watching. Like, subscribe, comment, and I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. God bless.